Hello, YouTube. I'm Cheryl Turnois, host of the Thinking Woman's Mitch podcast. I hope today that you will stay long enough to listen to me out, listen to the guests that I've invited, because we have something to share with you that I think will be very helpful. The Thinking Woman Mensch podcast for the last 2 years have been a audio podcast, but now it is what we are doing visually. So if you would stay around and see for yourself that it's an interview that I think you will love. Today, the woman that I have invited, I am very pleased to introduce to you. Her name is Rujel Buggs. She is the author of a cookbook. The cookbook is named A Taste from My Mother's Kitchen. She not only have authored a cookbook, but she is very much into the wellness of a certain target audience in order for them to live the best lives possible, their diets as well as exercise. I couldn't help but want to speak to a woman such as this because she's right up my alley. So I want you to meet Rujel Buggs. How are you today, girl?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and thinking of me. I am so excited to share my thoughts and my passion and my mission that I'm trying to spread out there to everyone on every platform.
Well, it's a beautiful mission to have, first of all. So I was so thrilled to learn of you. And let me say to you, as well as to the audience, I saw her on Facebook. Her book, it can be purchased on Amazon. It's a beautiful cover and everything. You should truly be someone who's interested in hearing what she has to say, that you may purchase her book. But what made her so attractive to me, what made you attracted to me, for me to want to invite, is I love the fact that you are honoring your mother. And with you honoring your mother, it is so much mirroring my life, right? And the bonding glue for you and your mother being cooking, it was not the bonding glue for me and my mother, but it tells me that every woman who has a relationship with her mother, there's something that's the bonding glue. So I was
Right.
interested in you based on these things that I saw on Facebook. And so that before I go into what I would say, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us who you are, your family life, where you live.
Okay. Well, my name, first of all, is just a story in itself. My main name is Rujel, however you want to pronounce it, but it's both of my grandmothers, Ruth and Jewel. So depending on what grandmother was calling me, my father's mother was Ruth, which is my grandmother Ruth. My mother's mother was Jewel, which is my grandmother Jewel. So depending on which grandmother was calling me, that will pronounce my name. So if Mother Ruth, it will be Ruth Jail. If Mother Jewel, it will be Ruth Jewel. So that's how I got my name. I hated it at first, and I have a little story about that in my cookbook because my name was so different from everybody else. I wasn't an Ann, I wasn't a Sue, I wasn't a Pam. I was different. And my mama told me that I named you that way for a reason. You are different. You are going to be unique. So I took that when I got older. Obviously, when you get younger, you don't hear that. You don't understand that. You just want to be like everybody else. But as I grew into myself and started discovering my own self, I understood what my mother was telling me way back then.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm a military brat. My dad was in the military. So we traveled a lot. The majority of my time was overseas. I was actually born overseas at Millenhall, England. So I have a dual citizenship. So a lot of the recipes that I experienced traveling, mother brought them home. And sometimes, people will come over to the house and say, "What is this?" Like a Scotch egg. Some people don't know what Scotch eggs are. And I get into that. It's just basically a boiled egg that you take the shell off the egg. You get some ground beef or ground sausage and you mold it with the egg. You roll it in some breadcrumbs, and you roll it in some egg yolk, and roll it in breadcrumbs again, and then you fry it. And then when you open it up, you have a boiled egg with your ground beef or a sausage around, and they call that Scotch eggs. So there's a lot of things that I learned abroad, and being in the military with my dad, my mom.
Understandable. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I learned some of that when I went onto Amazon and read your bio. So
Mm-hmm.
let's start right there, that this closeness that you shared with your mom. I also learned something that we have in common too, that your mom made her transition 2 years ago. It's been 4 years for me.
Mm-hmm.
So with you doing the cookbook, the first thing I would like to ask you, what was the favorite recipe that you cooked with your mother from your perspective, and why was it your favorite?
Pound cakes. My mother would cook the best vanilla pound cake that you could. I mean, you would taste the vanilla, you would taste the smoothness, and it just smelled so good. And the reason why, I guess, because baking a pound cake, it takes time. And during that time, the butter and the sugar is creaming. That's when we had our conversations. You can't rush a pound cake. So that to me is the one recipe that I kept. It's in my cookbook, and it just always reminds me of the conversations I had with my mom while we were preparing a pound cake for the family on holidays.
I like that because, like where I said that cooking was not the glue for me and my mother, but
Well done, right?
my mother and my brother.
Mhm.
Barbara, I'm going to ask you to mute your mic for me. Please mute your mic. I thought I did, but I'm going to ask all participants to definitely mute your mic for me. Thank you. So, what I wanted to say to you is that my brother, I had an older brother who my mother and he would bond over a pound cake that they would make as an
Mm-hmm.
annual thing, right? So when you said pound cake, you make me think of how they bonded in that way, but that was not the case. But I love when you say your why. Your why is because you actually communicated. That was conversation you and her had. So my
Mm-hmm.
next question, Rujel, would be, how did this closeness in the kitchen with you and your mom ground
Mm,
your womanhood?
good question. When mommy's cooking, and like most women, we always clean while we're cooking.
Right.
Mama will always drop little tidbits, while we're cooking. Now, you remember when you get married, you're gonna have to learn how to cook one of your husband's favorite meals that his mom prepared for him. Just little tidbits while we're in the kitchen together, and those things held close to me. Mommy didn't work, so mommy stayed home. Mommy stayed home. When we come home from school, we had, dinner was being. We smelled dinner coming into the house when we came in. We smelled that coming in. I love the way she took care of us. I love the way she took care of my dad. Dad would come home for lunch. He has lunch prepared. So those old school ideas and idealistics, they kind of set with me. When I get up on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, you can smell that I'm cooking. You can either hear that I'm cooking or you can smell that I'm cooking. So my mother grounded me by just observing her, by
Yeah.
just watching her, watching how
Yes.
she prepared dinner, watching how she cared for the family. Just watching her made me who I am today.
Well, you know what? I understand that because one thing that the takeaway would be today is that I would like listeners to hear that they may not realize it, but you are a brand of your mother. You're not identical to, right? We cannot be identical to them, but your type of womanhood, excuse me, a little frog in my voice, but your brand of womanhood, that's where it starts, right?
Right,
So
right.
you being someone who's definitely taking care of the family, taking care of the husband, like doing what your mom, you watch that, right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think that's a beautiful thing. So being grounded as a woman, that's where it starts, right at our mother's knee, right? It's not what they
Exactly.
say, but it's what they do. So I love
Exactly.
that. It's a shared experience here when
Hmm.
we're talking, that I may get to know you and you may get to know me, Army, right? So
Right.
the thing is, I'm loving what I've read about you thus far, but now, or hearing, but now here's something that I really did enjoy when I read about your bio, how your parents met. Okay.
Yeah.
I love how in the bio where you read where your father, not your father yet, you're not the husband, not the boyfriend of your mother yet, but yet he was visiting there because he was having a first date with someone, met
Hmm.
your mother, and that was the
That
settling
was
of the
it.
story for him. And
That was
I
it.
loved that,
That was
so
it.
you have a very rich background that I did read. And when you said to us about being an army brat, okay, that is so important too. So, in our conversation today, I want to ask you, being an army brat, right?
Well, let me correct that. Air Force. Let's go military brat. Because
Yeah, military brat.
military brat. Daddy was
Okay,
in the Air Force.
military brat. Yeah, that is more proper, right? When you put the right armed force to it.
Right.
Well, you being so, can you share with us any culinary challenges your mother would have had being in these other places, other regions? You can't find things you're familiar with.
Right. Collard greens, number one. Couldn't find that overseas. Oh, Brussels sprouts. We found a lot of Brussels sprouts. So mommy learned how to cook Brussels sprouts, but I didn't like the way my mom cooked them. So I had to revamp them, and I did that in my recipe book. But we didn't have collard greens overseas. Um, Fresh string beans. The only fresh vegetables I recall eating over there was Brussels sprouts. That's the only thing. Oh, Brussels sprouts and what was the other thing? Rutabagas. For some
Yes.
reason, okay, we had that overseas, but collard greens, string beans, um, okra, we didn't have that deep southern vegetables that we have here
Yes.
um, overseas. We didn't have that.
Uh-huh. Well, when I asked you that challenge, is because I have met other people who were military brats, and they would speak about how their mother would, make sure that whatever seasoning she used, the dry seasonings, that
Hmm.
she just carried that just like their clothes, right? And was
Exactly.
taking
Mama did
around.
the same thing. She did, packed her seasonings. It's so funny you say that, but mommy did that. She had a suitcase just for seasonings.
Right.
And she would put them in Ziploc bags so they wouldn't spatter all over the place. But she had a suitcase just for seasonings. You're absolutely right. That's
Yeah.
funny you say that.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to Brussels sprouts, you cooking with a southern flair and twist, I truly would like to taste them because I never really care for it. No matter who puts them before me, it still got that little bite at the
Bitter
end.
taste to it. That bitter
Yeah.
taste to it. Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah.
when it comes to rutabagas, I didn't eat those until I was a grown person. My mother made it for somebody who
Hmm.
brought them to her, and she prepared it. And it smelled so wonderful. I said, well, let me taste it. So I didn't grow up eating that, but that's
Yeah.
pretty good too.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. And people don't realize it has a sweet taste to it.
Yeah, it does.
It
Like
has
a
a
sweet
sweet taste to
potato,
it.
kind of.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So that was the challenge when you were a little girl traveling from region to region with your mother. And so you can recall that. And that's a beautiful memory to have too. All right. So now let me ask another question. In your traveling, is there any region that you learned to like food better than what you came to know? Southern
Oh,
eating.
well, I'm everything that I can just recall. I remember we were stationed not overseas, but stationed in Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana. And back then, now, and we go on a Fridays, we go get either hamburgers or chicken. So we had different things. Like in Louisiana, we would go and get fried gizzards.
Yes.
Okay. In
Uh-huh.
England, right? In England, we would go get fish and chips.
Yes.
Okay. The fish was battered. Okay, beer battered. Theirs was ale. They didn't have the clear. I'm guessing you can get the dark beer is ale there.
Yes.
And the chips, they weren't potato chips. They were big, fat French fries.
Yes.
Okay. And then we would have the malt vinegar that you would sprinkle over the fish and the French fries.
Yeah.
And they would always come wrapped in newspaper. So, now on a Friday afternoon or special things to do, you'll go get your hamburgers and French fries. When we was in Louisiana, we got our fried gizzards and liver. We did that.
Yeah.
And then in England, we had our fish and chips. That was our little treat, our Friday afternoon or Friday evening treat. Go get some fish and chips.
Well, I'm so glad that you are a guest of mine after my experience of going to England, because I went last year. A solo traveler, I became last year for the first time. And so just what you're speaking of, I experienced, right?
Yeah.
The malt vinegar, it being wrapped in paper, it was good, right? And I wanted to try what's famous for them, right? I never did get around to the shepherd's pie. Right.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get around to that, but yes, these different things that you speak on is something I am familiar with. And in Chicago, my God, I truly know folks that like fried gizzards, but they're too hard. I can't.
Yeah, you have to soak those in a little bit of vinegar water to tenderize them a little bit.
Yeah.
And you got to clean them right. You can't have all that collagen on it. You have to clean it right.
Well, see, listening audience, you see she know what she's talking about, because I wouldn't have had a clue.
I love to eat, so I got to learn how to cook because I like to eat.
Because I like it, but it was just too hard for me. It really was. So no, the whole thing in a nutshell is that I am glad to know that that's just how you operate. When I ask you about challenges, that's exactly what our conversation is about, because the interviews that you hear people are doing, the forecasts that's going on in the world now, they're talking about hardship, that war is looming over us. They're talking about how the economy may be crashing and housing and everything. And that being the case, Rujel, people still gotta eat. So when I read who you are, I said, well, that's one thing I would like to speak to her about. How can we prepare eating for the days ahead? So thank you for everything you said thus far. And that's where I want to talk to you for the rest of the time today. Before we get to cooking in our house, right, Rujel, we got to be able to do what? Go buy it first. Exactly. So will you share with us tips how to do better at the grocery store, and not to even think about how high the cost is now, right? The cost is extremely high, but tell us, being able to shop with a smart way of doing it to prepare for the days ahead at the grocery store only. Speak to that. Okay. Thank you.
A smart budget. First of all, I remember Mother, she would write out our menu for the week. So write out your menu for the week. And when you write out that menu, you're writing out the grocery list for that menu for the week. Okay?
Yeah.
So and you stick to that grocery list. You don't go there and say, okay, well, I have, beans. And beans is a very good thing to have. Dry beans, smoked meat. And I'm going to go all the way back to when I was growing up. We had meals that we call them our hardship meals. Now they're just Southern meals, but we knew back in the day they were hardship meals. Okay. And those hardship meals are your beans and rice. And the smoked meat that was in the beans, that was your protein.
Yeah.
If you didn't have anything else, you had the smoked meat that was prepared in those beans.
Yes.
And those are hardship meals. Okay. But now those hardship meals are turning into something else. Okay. Because now we have money.
Yes.
We can, okay. So now we're not calling them hardship meals. You put some cornbread with that'll last you.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to have your canned meats. All right. If you cannot get to the grocery store, at least you have your tuna fish in place. You can make tuna salad. You can make tuna casserole. Okay. You have chicken. You can have the canned chicken. You can have the chicken salad once again. If we get to the point where you have a national disaster, especially in Florida here, sometimes our electricity goes out. Okay.
Yes.
It's not 911, but our electricity is out. We can't cook. All right. Make sure you have propane in your house so you could be able to grill outside. All right. Make sure there's only two of us, my husband and I. We have a deep freezer. Okay.
Yeah.
When things go on sale and you have the extra cash, go ahead and buy that extra pot roast. Go ahead and buy that extra loaf of bread that you could put in the freezer.
Yeah.
You could pull that out. Okay. Things that are perishable, when they're on sale, go ahead and buy those when they're on sale, because you don't know when you're not going to have the income. You don't know when you're not going to be able to go to the store. When COVID hit, our freezer was stocked. So there was times that I didn't have to worry about going to the grocery store because my freezer was stocked.
Right.
I prepared in my head, going back to, once again, how I was raised. Mother would buy bread when it was on sale. She would put one loaf in the freezer. She would even buy canned milk, carnation milk.
Yeah.
You can put carnation milk sometimes in your cereal. It's going to make it sweet, but at least you have milk. So those are the things that you need to think about. What can I buy that I can be able to buy two of? If I have a little extra money in my grocery budget, go ahead and buy those extra cans of meat, extra cans of vegetables rather. And another thing you might want to also try to do is have yourself a homemade garden. Okay. Have you some tomatoes that you're growing. Have you some collard greens that you're growing. Mother had collard greens growing in our backyard. We had collard greens growing.
Well, before we get to the planting, let me say something what you have spoke about the store, because I love what you said about the grocery store. First of all, what I thought was very smart ideal that you just said about make sure that you can grill, right? So whether a person don't have outside space or not, you can find these grills, right? Electrical grills and grills for outside. So a way to be able to cook just in case if the utilities go out. That was very smart. So I hope people will put that on their list. Hey, listen, find a way to be able to cook when you cannot cook in the kitchen. So that was excellent. I love that. The other thing that you said that I loved that you just said as well, when you spoke about freezer. So my thought is for people who do not have the additional freezer outside of the refrigerator, what say you? Do you think it's a good idea that they buy whole chickens, buy a whole turkey, buy a whole ham? So,
yes.
you know what I mean? So they can cook off of these things and eat them certain ways instead of getting just legs and thighs.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? What say you?
And you know what else you can do when you go to the grocery store, especially Costco's. I'm bet there's Costco's everywhere. Get those rotisserie chickens for $5.
Yeah.
Get your gallon Ziploc bag, and what do? You put that thing in a Ziploc bag and you put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
It will last, I think, maybe a month, 2 months, but you have it there. And then, when you have people come over, you don't have to say, okay, what can I do? Well, I got that rotisserie chicken in there. I can pull that out. I can pull the meat apart. I can make a salad.
Yeah.
I can make a pasta dish with that. So just think smarter.
Yes.
That's all I'm asking for people to do going forward. When things are on sale, go ahead and grab a couple of extra ones when they're on sale.
But you know what? I love when you said that, and I buy them all the time. They never last a month or so. I eat it immediately, okay? But yeah, that is a smart thing, and that's what we're trying to convey to the people today, that you may not have freezer space like my sister is talking about, but if you don't think in part and think in whole, you can eat chicken many kind of ways, just like Rujel just said, right? And turkey, ham. So we got to think smart for the days ahead. Now you went on and you were speaking about planting. So let me ask you this. What do you know in regards to planting when people don't have large space or don't have backyards? I have not garden in a container, but I know you are about fresh produce. So what can the people do to plant in order to prepare for days ahead?
Yes, what you can do when you go to the grocery stores and normally buy your vegetable and your produce section of the grocery store, there are small already potted basil tarragon. Get those and then put them in your kitchen area. If you don't have a lighted space, if you don't have a window by your kitchen, if you have a patio, just once a day, not when the sun is high, but like in the evening time when the sun's getting ready to go down, bring your plants outside, let them get that vitamin D. But you can keep that basil inside. You can keep your tarragon inside. You can keep your rosemary inside. Rosemary make your kitchen and your whole kitchen area smell good.
Yeah.
So that's in itself. And during the Christmas time, you see these rosemary trees. That makes your house smell so nice. You can be able to have that rosemary tree in your kitchen. And another thing is that you can be able to spot grow them. I call them, when you take a piece of the rosemary off, get the tip of the end of it, put it in a little bit of water so it can start to root. Once it starts to root, then transport that into another clay dish. And so now you've already grown some more rosemary from the first rosemary that you have. So start doing something like that. It just do small things like that and have your little small pots, clay pots in your kitchen area.
Yeah, sampling. That's what's that called, right? Sampling, when you take it from somewhere else. The rosemary tree, I'm gonna look for that because I have lived in a house before that when it was already planted before I got there. But rosemary bushes were all around there. So when the wind blew, it just
makes everything smell so good.
Oh yeah,
doesn't
it was wonderful.
Oh,
and
wow.
then when you spoke about tarragon, I have had that in chicken, and so that kicks the chicken up another level, right?
Yep.
When I used to go to the store with my mother, I used to say to her, everybody buys the same meat. It's what you do with them, right?
With the meat, right.
Because when people say, I'm sick of chicken, well, you've been eating chicken the same way, right?
That's why.
Yeah, so that's why. But people cook it and fix it all kinds of ways. So I like your ideal about planting. Well, where I live now, it's a patio, and the patio goes the length of the home, the apartment, right? And so for me, I want to learn how to do it in containers, right? Because I know if I do the dirt deep enough or whatever, maybe I can do a cabbage, right? But I don't know how to do that type of gardening yet, so I got to read up on it.
Right, you can. And I will start small. I will start with something small, like, dabble your hands in just preparing and cook and having some basil in place. Have the rosemary in place. Just go baby steps.
Yeah.
And once those start flourishing, you got it going on, you know what's going on, you know how to do it, then graduate maybe to tomato plants. Yeah. Tomato plants are easy to grow, and then graduate again, cucumbers, and then put in your mind, let me make a salad planter outside of my patio. So you get you some lettuce. And then with your lettuce, especially your romaine lettuce, you chop the bottom part, the top part of it off, you put it in some water, it's going to grow some roots. After those roots start to come through, shake off the water, put it in a nice clay pot, it's going to start rooting out. You're going to have another bed of romaine lettuce. So things like that can be able to grow up on their own. Romaine lettuce can do that. Celery can do that. You cut off the bottom part, top part off the celery, you have the root part back there, shave that off a little bit, put it in some water, let the roots start to come down, take that, put it in a clay pot, and you're going to start having some celery root off.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because that's the only lettuce that I eat. So I'm going to do that this week, okay? So I'm going to cut the bottom off, let it soak in water until it get roots.
Right. So you have your romaine lettuce. Okay. Here's the leaves here, and here's the bottom part of your romaine lettuce. Yes. You chop that off. You're going to use this part because that's your lettuce. The bottom part of it, that's the part you're going to put in the water, and that's the part that's going to start growing the roots.
Okay.
Because every time you cut your romaine lettuce, you always cut the bottom part off and you throw that away.
That's right.
Don't throw that away anymore. Instead of throwing that away, put it in some water and let those roots start to root out. And then you transport that into a clay pot. And now you're going to start seeing your romaine lettuce grow.
Oh, honey, listen, we can hang up now.
You ready to go?
Because you can do that with so much stuff, putting it over
Yeah.
in your lettuce, right?
Right.
So,
Your
okay,
onions, the same thing with your onions. You know how onions, you let them stay in there in your oven, your pantry too long, it starts growing that long little. Okay, what is
yes,
it doing?
it's
It's
rooting.
growing. Yeah. All you
Yeah.
gotta do is put that in some water and and then you take it outside. I had an onion plant back outside. My husband said, "What is that?" I said, "Onion."
You know, girl, I'm so glad that you're on here because that was priceless. I am going to do that this weekend. I
There you
really am.
go.
You know, let me ask you this too. You have taken us on a shopping spree, how to think smarter, right? You have shown us something how to do to plant, whether you have a yard, whether you got small space or whatever. Speak to us about necessary kitchen tools. You know, some
Oh wow.
people, now this is something that I'm sure that I got correct about you.
Hmm.
One, I think cooking is therapeutic for you.
It is.
Two, I think you got a well-stocked kitchen, meaning that like the women like to dress up. People who love the kitchen, they got all kind of beautiful tools and pots and pans. They like all that paraphernalia. Listen, I wouldn't be as healthy as I am now if it wasn't for me watching the Food Network channel. And I said, "Oh, look at that
Okay.
pot back there. Oh, it's pink." You know. So tell us necessary tools for the people who are not big on the kitchen like you are.
Well, necessary tools. Well, first of all, I just got to say this. I'm a kitchen gadget nut. I
You
have
would
every
be,
kind of kitchen gadget you can imagine.
I'm
I have.
sure.
But the most perfect thing that you need, the best thing that you need in your kitchen is a good knife.
Yeah.
That's it.
Uh-huh.
Another good tool is a mandolin, but I guard you against it if you're not in the kitchen all the time.
Right.
Um, the mandolin is great, it's quick, but it's very, very sharp. So I think the best kitchen utensil that you can have in your kitchen is a good set of cutting knives.
I agree.
And that's it. Because if you don't have the right knife, you're going to butcher your chicken. You're not going to be able to cut it properly. You don't have the right knife. When you try to cut a tomato, it's going to be all over the place because you don't have that nice slice.
Yeah.
So the best and the most important kitchen tool would be a good set of kitchen knives. Period.
I agree with you. And with you saying that, you know, since they've had that program on the Food Network channel about the worst cooks in America, you know, you see so many times they do not know how to think out the box. So when Rujel is speaking about the knives, what would you say in regards to a cutting board? If a person don't have a cutting board, you know, how can they safely use these good knives? You know,
That's
should
good.
they?
Well, that's hard for me because I have cutting boards. I've never not had a cutting board. So that's going to be kind of hard for me. If that all depends on what kind of countertop you have.
Yeah,
Okay, so if you don't have cutting boards of any kind, make sure you get you some Lysol spray or some bleach spray down your countertop, clean that very well. And once again, if you have formica, if you have granite, things like that, you can cut on, but make sure that your cutting surface is very sterile. If you do not have a cutting board, but I'm strongly, I think somebody has to have a cutting board. You've got to have at least one cutting board. But if you don't, make sure that your cutting space is sterilized and make sure you got the bleach on it and clean it there, and then you can be able to cut on your formica, granite, those things you can cut on.
well, you know, I like that we're touching on that because for me and you, it seemed obvious. Yes, have a cutting board in your kitchen, right? But there are some people who really despise cooking so much that they don't have the necessary tools that they should have. And when you just said sterilizing, speak to people right quick because you just gave me a great idea. A lot of people don't understand the importance of working with poultry. You know, chicken, you need to make sure that you have a clean counter before and afterwards. Speak to that.
Yes. Well, we eat chicken a lot. Okay, that's one because we're not. real good on red meat. I don't eat a whole lot of red meat because I can't digest it very well. So I eat a lot of chicken, a lot of fish, a lot of turkey. When you clean your chicken, make sure you have a bottle of bleach. Baby girl, could you hand me that so I can show them quick? Yes, thank you. Make sure you have this in your kitchen, please.
Yes.
Okay. Have this in your kitchen. And then what you want to do, if you have to, and I don't clean my kitchen, I try not to clean my chicken in my sink, have another bowl. Okay. So if you have another bowl, even a pan like this, put it in your sink. Okay. That way you don't have to spray down your entire sink. But if you don't have another silver bowl or another bowl to actually wash your chicken, and you have to use the sink, please, okay, get you some Clorox bleach and bleach that out. Back in the day, I don't recall, and I'm going to tell you that we never got sick. We never got sick, but I don't recall my mama doing that.
Yeah.
I don't recall her doing that. But now, I mean, we're so in tune with our health, and we're so in tune with, not getting botulism, okay? Yeah. We have to be more careful.
I agree.
That's what I do.
And I think it's what they feed them as well too now, right? So they feed them some everything. So when we're speaking to you today, her being the expert in the culinary space, I'm just throwing out things that she may speak them to you, that you may consider them. Like, for example, when my son-in-law cooks chicken, he washes it with a lemon, right?
Yes. That's correct.
That is just something that the people need to know. But when we're talking about necessary tools in the kitchen, my dear friend, and now you really have become a friend of mine. I love your spirit.
Thank you.
Speak to us about the air fryer. When microwave got very popular, everybody was afraid of it. They said, oh, it's going to cause cancer, but people not only learned to heat in it, they learned to cook in it. But now the air fryer is so popular. What say you about the air fryer?
I love my air fryer. I love it. And it reminds me of a confection oven. If you think about it, when you open up your confection oven, there's a fan in the back there. That fan circulates the heat. That's the same process that your air fryer has. If you look on the top, and you have to clean it, I hope people do clean out their air fryers. When you wipe the top, the top part of your air fryer, those are heat coils there. That has the heat there. That's the heat. And the air that's flowing around in there, it's working just as if it was a confection oven.
I see.
I do my chicken wings in the air fryer. I do my cauliflower. I have fried cauliflower, fried broccoli, fried string beans. I toss them as if I was going to actually fry them in grease. And then I spray some avocado oil on the actual, either my chicken wings or my vegetables, and put it in the air fryer. And just in your mind, the air fryer is all it is a confection oven. It's circulating the heat.
Now you said a key thing for me, because I have bought one, but I've never used it, right? I got a very nice big one, but I have never used it. So do you have to put oil on whatever you're putting in it?
If you want it to have a crunch to it, if you want it to appear or taste as if you had fried it, yes, I would recommend spritzing with some avocado oil or olive oil. I use avocado oil because avocado oil, it can take extreme heat.
Okay.
And if you want your chicken wings to have a crunch to it, just spritz it, with some avocado oil or olive oil, whatever you prefer. But that will actually give you that crust, that crunch that you're looking for.
Okay, so I need a spray bottle because I use olive oil all the time. But now when you speak about the air freshener, I need to be able to spritz it and not pour it on there.
No. Some people, what you can do if you don't have a spritzer, once again, after you season your meat, your chicken wings or whatever type of meat you're going to put in, some people have salmon. You cut your salmon in squares. My daughter, she's preparing salmon now. You cut your salmon in squares, you season it, put it in a bowl, put a little bit of olive oil and just toss it.
Okay.
You just want to lightly coat it. so it can be able to crisp up. Because once again, remember, you're talking about a convection oven. So your air fryer is just a convection oven. So you want it to have crisp.
And they made it portable.
Exactly. That's all it is.
That's all it is.
That's it.
Wow. Okay. That's a great concept to understand as well. You know, when you speak about your daughter is cooking right now, I'm going to ask you, if you had to cook dinner and only 3 ingredients, dinner for us right quick with 3 ingredients.
Right quick. It will not have meat, so we're gonna do a dish that I sometimes do on Sundays. Matter of fact, I think I did this dish 2 Sundays ago. Pasta, cherry tomatoes, garlic. Okay. Now if you want to kick in a 4th one, you could get you some basil, but we're not going to do the basil. So all you do, it's going to be more than 3, isn't it? So I can't use that one. That's more than. Well, yes, I can. So you got your tomatoes.
Yeah.
You got a casserole dish. You have your cheese balls. You get these cheese balls. They have herb cheese, garlic herb. They're little small balls of cheese that already has the herbs, the chives, everything mixed in it. Put those 2 in the casserole dish. Put your cherry tomatoes around it. That's 2 ingredients right there. Get you some garlic. That's your 3rd ingredient. Put it in the oven.
Yeah.
Okay. The cheese is going to melt. Your tomatoes are going to blister, and your garlic is going to absorb into the tomato juices that's coming from the blistered tomatoes. When it comes out blistered, when the cheese is all melted, you get and just stir it together. Just stir it. The pasta that you've cooked, that pasta water, you just pour it into that dish, and now you've made a sauce without the jar.
Yours tastes way better than what I did once before. And that's why I said, let me ask my guest, what would she do? For the simple fact, I was watching YouTube one time. This was a couple of years back. And they were talking about quick meals to make, right? And so when I got off of there, I thought to myself, okay, what can I do right quick? Because I have said to you that it's boring cooking for one person, right? So I took my I took my pan out, okay? And then what I did, I got those miniature corn on the cob.
Okay.
I got them, and I got carrots, and I got broccoli, right? So after I cleaned everything, I put them in the pan. I put butter. I wrapped just butter on the corn, had it in the foil. I put brown sugar on the carrots, right? And I put butter and garlic powder on the broccoli.
Okay.
It was so good, but let me tell you, it was hard, my friend, because different things cook at different temperatures.
Right.
So I said, okay, I didn't do that one right, but I still ate it because the carrots were sweet.
Yeah.
Corn was buttery, right? But it wasn't the way it should be. But what you just said tastes very tasty and fulfilling, okay? It really do. So let me ask you this, because the times are saying to expect trouble ahead. Explain to us, what can we do to create an emergency food supply? Things that don't perish. What say you? What do we need for that? Other than me knowing beans and rice, my sister, I know nothing else.
Well, as we touched on earlier, you want to look at some of your canned goods, okay? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about, once I finish that, I'm going to tell you about how to prepare these canned goods so they won't taste like a can. But stock up on it. Make sure you have your produce that you're growing on your patio.
Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2, we talked about, buying the rotisserie chickens and putting those in the freezer. We talked about that.
Yes.
We talked about, possibly having some canned tuna or whatever, having that aside. But if you don't have the produce outside on your patio, if you don't have that and you're stuck with buying canned vegetables, when you open up the can, pour out that juice that's there. Get under your sink and just rinse as many times as possible all that, I call it canned juice, and your vegetables. You're rinsing off all of that canned juice that's been in your vegetables. Because mind you now, your vegetables have been sitting in those cans for how long? Okay. So if you open up a can of corn, pour off the juice that comes in that can, take your can underneath the sink, run water through it, and pour it off. Keep doing that about 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Now your vegetables are not going to taste like canned.
Okay.
So that's something that you can do. But other than that, I mean, your produce that you grow outside, just be mindful of the things that, like as we said earlier, touched on earlier. We see things on sale. Go ahead and purchase those and put those away. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, before I thought for sure you were going to say peanut butter.
You know, reason why I didn't say it, because we talked about that earlier.
Even though I hate peanut butter, somebody else
you don't like
needs
peanut butter. But peanut butter and jelly, PBJs, you got to have those because once again, you're gonna buy your bread. Buy one. They have the buy one get one free on your bread. Buy one get one free. Put the other one in the freezer. Peanut butter and jelly is not gonna go bad. You can always have peanut butter and jelly. So always have that in your house. I tell my son that he's on his own now. I said, honey, if you don't have nothing else in your house, make sure you have some bread and some peanut butter and jelly.
Well, I have heard that forever, and it's true, right? But for me, remember when we were little and it really did stick to the roof of your mouth?
Yes, it did.
Oh, and so I still remember that as a kid. So, I don't want it. But now I tell you something that I did learn to appreciate because it doesn't really taste like peanut butter. When they talk about the Elvis Presley sandwich,
peanut butter and bananas.
Yeah, and the bacon. Well, I kind of like that because I couldn't taste the peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
But now let me say something because you've said it twice, and I love that you said this because I remember my mother used to say it, but my siblings didn't like the fact of this. But she would say, buy bread and put it in the freezer. Well, most people say, I don't want any cold bread, but it's the way to preserve it longer, and when you get ready to use it, let it sit out for a while.
Let it sit out. Exactly. Right? Just let it sit out.
Yeah, so I love that you said that because somebody will need to know that, listen, you can't be going every time just to get a loaf because it's getting low.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I tell my kid, you don't shop when you run out, you shop when it's running low.
Oh, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that is so key to be able to do in everything. You don't want to be out, you want to be low. And so
you always want to restock. And that's another thing I brought for my mother is grocery lists.
Yeah.
Plan your meals for the week and have a grocery list to correlate with your meals that you have for the week. And then also make sure that you have, I call it a supply list. And if it's running low, either have it on your refrigerator somewhere that you can see it. That way you can have a mental note that, I'm running low on toilet paper, or I'm running low on hand towels, or I'm running low on mayo, because I buy the mayo big. So, I don't want to wait and make me a sandwich that I go in there and I'm doing this because I don't have any more mayo.
That's right.
And it's got to be Miracle Whip in our house.
The same for me. Ain't that commercial true? If you can make everything, but if you got no Miracle Whip, put it all back. Put it back in the refrigerator. I'm the same way. Yeah, it's Miracle Whip for me too. Yeah. But I like something else that you have said, and that's pre-planning your menu. Again, I don't do that because it's just me. But I just thought about that. I still could do it because you're into wellness as a wellness coach. So speak to how being a wellness coach, you can stop having the thought that I have that you only cook for a family. But if I did what you're saying for me, it would be a better circumstance.
Most definitely. And I cook, and believe it or not, my husband is not as health conscious as I am. So I have to cook his old school meals.
Yeah.
And that's the majority of my cookbook is old school meals.
Yeah.
But for me, I plan out my meals for the week when I go to work. So I would put together my salads. I will cut up my cucumbers. I would cut up my tomatoes. I would put aside my lettuce, and I will pack those in individual containers. If I'm making salmon, like my daughter's making salmon now, you make a whole fillet of salmon. You're not going to eat all of that in one sitting,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
hopefully not.
let's hopefully not. Okay, unless you've got guests.
Hopefully not.
Right. You cut those up, put it in Ziploc bags, and put it in the freezer. It's already prepared. It's already cooked. So put those in, I guess what, 4 ounces is right here is 4 ounces. Put those in Ziploc bags, freezer, Ziploc bags, not the sandwich bags, but the freezer Ziploc bags. Portion it out, put it in the freezer. You've got your salads already made. You got your cucumbers already cut up. You got your tomatoes already cut up. Now you've got the salad, your salmon, just pull that out, put it on the countertop, let it defrost. And when you come back, break it up, you put it in your salad.
Not only do I like the wisdom of that, but also too, you being a wellness coach, I want you to speak to tips on how to eat moderate. And let me speak as my own personal testimony. Like, for example, my sister and niece, her daughter, I noticed they were never the type on a regular basis to eat seconds. I noticed that early watching them, right? That they fixed their plate, enjoyed their plate, but you didn't see them being somebody that go back and forth. I was somebody who did go back and forward. Okay, I always have, right? Unless I didn't like them.
No, I used to too.
Well, but listen, so being a wellness coach, I'm really taking notes here. How can you train yourself to eat moderate? Now, I also want to be transparent here with you too, sis, because I said it's a shared experience. I learned also too that for me, eating was a way to speak to boredom. Right? I've always been someone who's been kind of a loner, and I like being at home, right? So whether when I was married or not, that's my comfort place. I could be outside all day, everywhere. I can even be at work, not interested in eating. I get home, I want to get my pajamas on, and I eat like it's a feast.
That's your companion.
Yeah, it's been my
companion.
It's been my companion for years. Yeah. So I will be honest with you, because again, there are people that will be watching this and they're in the same shape that I'm in, that they have misused food. And you don't have to be a gluttony. You just use it wrong. So speak to tips to eat moderate.
Okay. I have one tip, and that's, visual. We eat with our eyes. So if we put our dinners on a regular plate, we got more room on our plate. Okay, so we're going to try to fill that plate up.
Yeah.
And when you fill that plate up, you're filling up your stomach. So here's a visual thing for you. Here's just a little tip. Instead of getting a full dinner plate, get a salad plate.
I don't own one.
Get you one.
I don't own one.
Get you one. Put your meal on a salad plate. Okay, and that's your proportions right there. And then you see that my plate is full. In your mind, you should say that I should be full too, because I done ate a plate full of food.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's another tip. And what I do, move. You got to move. So right before you have dinner, I know me personally, if I exercise or go for a walk or something like that prior to me eating, when I get finished with that 30 minutes, it only takes 30 minutes. You don't have, you could go for 45 and whatever, but at the age of 64 and 65 and going up, all you really need to do, and I'm going to be honest with you, is 30 minutes every day.
Yeah.
If you can go 45 minutes, that's great. You can walk 15 minutes one way, turn around and walk 15 minutes the other, and you've got your 30 minutes in. And the thing about that, after you've done your little 30 minutes, take your shower. At that point, you're not really hungry. All you want is something to drink. You're thirsty.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and I have this posted on several of my platforms there, that when you feel that you're hungry, maybe your body is saying, I'm thirsty instead.
Yeah.
So try that. Try that. If you feel that I'm hungry, and you just got finished eating, so you're not really hungry.
Yeah.
Go get you something to drink. Go get you either some fruit juice, and on the fruit juice, dilute some of that with water, because we have fruit does have sugar in it, and it all depends on what time of day you're eating or drinking that fruit. If you're drinking that fruit or eating that fruit up in the day, that's great because you have enough time throughout the day to burn those calories off. So be mindful of what type of fruit you eat after 6, because it does have a lot of sugar in it. And if you're drinking fruit juice, cut it with a little water. That cuts down some of your calories. But 9 times out of 10, when you think you're hungry, you're not really hungry. You just need something to drink. Get you some juice.
Okay. Now,
cut it with some water.
Here's something that you said that I will try to do. Now, what I've done in recent years, I know I need to drink water before I eat because that'll fill me up too, right? So I don't eat and drink in the meal because I know that's a false full, right? So I'll eat whatever I'm eating and drink whatever beverage I have to it afterwards. But I have started drinking water before I eat that I may not do so much damage, right?
Right. I agree with you.
So I have started doing that. So you as a wellness coach, let me ask you, in the mornings, do you invest in the fact when people say drink warm lemon water or apple cider vinegar?
You can do all that if you want. You can do all that if you want. But my thing, I just get up, I have a bottle of water by my bed, and I just do a couple of sips before my feet touch the floor, to tell you the truth. I drink that. Once I start moving, I do have lemon in my water. I do have lemon in my water. Lemon in your water. Lemon is a natural diuretic.
Yes.
It's a natural diuretic. So throughout the day when you're drinking your water, slice you some lemons and put it in your water, or get you some lemon juice and just squeeze some lemon juice in your water. Throughout the day, just do that. And you'll be surprised how many times you're going to the bathroom. And that's great because it's cleaning out your system.
Yes.
Water is the best beauty treatment you can have.
Yeah.
Drink that water. It's the best beauty treatment.
I agree with you. And it's only by the grace of God that my skin is decent, because I know water and lemon, that helps the skin, right? And so for me, I have to make myself drink water. So for my inner not to show up on my skin, I'm always saying, thank you, Lord, because that's what people need to know. When you see acne problems and things like that, that's inward showing on the skin, right? So when you said about water and lemon, amen and amen. So I will consider that. But now let me ask you this as well, and we almost finish here, and then we will ask anyone that's listening if they have feedback or questions. But here's one other thing I want to ask you. With the forecast that's being said about the world globally, what kind of meal would you suggest that a person can eat if they're on a budget, but it has a sense of fullness, right? Maybe somebody gonna only be able to eat one meal a day. So what meal would you suggest that will stick to the ribs and have a sense of fullness all day, maybe into the night?
I'm gonna go back again to my mother.
Okay, please do.
I'm going back to my mother. Rice. And if you notice, when you go to cookouts or what have you, there's always either some yellow rice or some Mexican rice or some rice and beans.
Yeah.
Rice and beans, rice that stretches. Meaning that you could prepare 2 cups of rice and you can have 4 and 5, 6 servings. Okay. Pasta. Pasta is another one. Yeah. But once again, if you're going to do your rice, I would recommend doing brown rice. I wouldn't recommend doing white rice. White rice has a lot of sugar and carbs in it. If you're doing your pasta, there's whole wheat pasta that you can use. You make that homemade sauce that I mentioned earlier with the tomatoes and the cheese and the garlic, and put that in the oven until it starts to melt. That's your homemade pasta sauce. Get you some whole wheat pasta. Pasta will hold, and you can hold on to that meal in your stomach for a while.
Now, let me ask you this, because even though it does fulfill when you say pasta and things like that, but brown rice, whole wheat pasta, back in the day, they didn't cook up right. Do they cook up better now?
I think it's the way they're processing it now. And once again, it's the way we learned how to cook it back then.
Okay.
So even though I don't eat a whole lot of white rice, but when I do cook white rice for those that are coming to visit,
Yeah.
I rinse my rice and get all that starch out of your rice.
Like back in the day. That's
like back in the day. And back in the day, my mother used to rinse her grits.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You try it one time. When you're doing your grits, just put some more water and just swish it around, and you'll see all that milkiness come to the top. That's starch. Pour that off, and you'd be surprised how creamy your grits will be.
You know what? I love that you're saying that, because you know what? I always thought grits being corn, it didn't have starch, but it has starch on it too.
Yeah, corn is a starch.
Oh,
Corn is a starch.
I always think about starch being flour.
No, corn is a starch. Rice, which is a grain,
Yeah.
that's a starch.
Uh-huh.
Another grain that you can have to fill you up is quinoa. I don't
Yes.
know if I'm pronouncing that right or
Yeah,
not.
you
but know what
did.
I'm
You
talking about.
did.
Okay, that's another grain that will fill you up. So any kind of grains, any kind of lentils, beans, those fill you up, and they're not that expensive to prepare.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that is a great idea that people will remember that your beans, your rice. But when you speak about grits, I really did. I always saw corn products was not considered carbs like flour product. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the tortilla, right? I
Mhm.
like the flour one, but everybody says, no, you should be eating the one that's made of corn. And I'm like, no. Okay. So
I guess it goes for digestive purposes because the corn is a grain.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but the flour comes from a grain too. If you think about it,
Well, now
it's
you
just
done made me
processed.
think about it.
Yeah, it's just processed differently. That's all.
I see.
Just
Well,
processed differently.
listen, talking to you today, if it's not educated for nobody but me, you have educated me. Okay. Because, like I told you, I love my mother. We were very close, but cooking was
Yes,
not the glue to it.
that was our glue. That
It
was our
was not
glue.
the bonding glue for she and me. As a matter of fact, my brothers like my cooking, and my
Mhm.
mother will tell me when it was a hit or a miss.
Oh, I got a funny story for you with that. My mom, bless her heart, I love my mommy so much. I miss her. She would, I was before when she got to the point that she couldn't cook anymore on herself on her own, and I would go and visit her on the weekends, and I would prepare dinners for my parents on the weekends. So she would say, "Ooh, this tastes good, but not like mine."
I like mine.
Mama, it tastes good, but not like mine.
Okay, we got to keep you in your place. Okay, come up, come up.
Yeah,
As a
yeah.
matter of fact, when it comes to cooking like my mother, instead of it being me or my sister, it's my niece. My
Oh,
niece
that's
cooks
good.
more like my mother than any of us. And
You
isn't
must have
that
been in the kitchen with your mom.
but no, she wasn't. And that's what's so
Really?
interesting, because every person got a certain hand, right? We can have the
Right.
same ingredients, the
Hmm.
same recipe, all of this, and yet a different hand will bring about a different result. But
Right, right.
her cooking is the closest to my mother. But now, something that your mother said to you that I read that I love, when she broke down to you the simple difference between a chef and a home cook. Tell
Yeah.
that to the people.
Okay. So mother says, if you have to read a recipe word for word, you're just a cook.
Yeah.
You're just a cook. You're just mimicking what you've been told to do.
Yeah.
But if you can go in the kitchen, you have your spices, your herbs, you have your protein, and you can go in there and just put together a meal. That's a chef. That's a
Yeah.
home chef.
Yes.
So that's the difference that my mom taught me. And then I thought about it when you get older. She's kind of right. A cook just does what they're told to do from a
Yeah.
recipe.
No, I love when your mother said that to you, because the difference between my mother and her mother was she would say that she go in the kitchen and her thought is, I'm gonna have to go to the store. My grandmother see a few items in there and come out with a meal. So
Yes,
that's that difference, right?
yes,
So I
yes.
love how your mom had said that to you. Again, audience that would be viewing us, be listening to us, my guest have written a cookbook in honor of her mother. It's called a taste from my mother's kitchen. And I think you would be amiss if you didn't run out and buy it. Not only do she have it in softback, hardback, but she also have it in digital form as an ebook. So I hope you will support her such as that. The last two things I want to speak to you about is, can you speak to the person that have no cooking skills, no
Skills at
matter
all.
what we say, have
Mhm.
not turned them on at all? What about that type of person?
That type of person, I would ask that they get a recipe, find one recipe, either it's from your mom or something that you saw on YouTube or whatever. Master that one recipe so you don't have to pick it up and look at it again. And then once you've got it embedded, then start expanding on it. Start making that recipe your own. And then once you get comfortable doing that and experimenting with that one recipe, then you're going to branch out and you're going to do another recipe and another recipe and another recipe. Before you know it, you have an arsenal of things that you can prepare without having to pick up a book and without having to pick up a recipe. Because now you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah. You know, who I want to hear this part clearly is my daughter. She is not somebody who likes to cook in the kitchen. The one thing that I know that she does well is bake, right?
Oh, yeah.
She likes baking, and my mother gave her a recipe to a cake, and it is wonderful. But I have to say to her, will you make it? Will you make it? So that advice that you gave, people such as her who do not like to get in there and cook, I
Mhm.
want them to know that it's a joy, right? It's like the first time I planted anything outside, I was telling everybody, look what God and me did. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
be proud when you make something. And like you said, we eat with our eyes.
Eyes.
So for
Mhm.
it to be presentable and everybody to love it, I never liked a coconut cake until my daughter Alexis baked one. And
Mhm.
I think what made me be interested in it, when she baked it from scratch, but it was
Mhm.
that she bought the coconut loose. So to see
Oh,
her pat it on there, it was
yeah.
artistic. And so that
Right.
spoke to me. You see what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I love that you are speaking even to the people who just have low cooking skills to no interest at all.
Right. Right.
The next thing I would like for you to speak to is substitutes.
Okay.
Substitutes when it comes to recipes. And let me tell you why it's important to me. I know a woman when I lived in Chicago who used to bake cakes, and I would say to her, "Oh, this is wonderful." I said, "So, all the ingredients you use, I'm naming off what I know you put, right?" And I said, "Butter." She said, "Oh, no, no, no butter in it." I said, "As moist as it is, there's no butter." She said, "No, I use applesauce."
Sauce. Mhm.
So, for you, give us a few substitute exchanges so we could not be concerned that if I don't have what the recipe called for, I
Mhm.
could substitute.
Mhm. Well, you've got tofu. You'd be surprised about tofu.
Hmm.
You can use tofu instead of an egg. Here's what I'm saying. Tofu, you can have it comes it all depends on the water content in tofu. You have tofu that has less water content, and that's that firm tofu. You have tofu that has more content in it, and that's the type of tofu that you could be able to use as a substitute for eggs. Another substitute for sour cream will be Greek yogurt.
Okay.
Okay, you can use Greek yogurt if you don't have any sour cream. You can do that.
So, when it comes to tofu, even
Hmm.
though I know it's been substitute for many things, but do
Hmm.
you know I never pay attention? Where is that sold at in the store? In the cooler? Like,
No, I know where I shop at. The tofu is over there by your. It's by the produce where all the health, well, I say the vegan
yeah.
things are at, because
Hmm.
a lot of vegans use that instead of eggs.
Okay.
That's where you're going to find your tofu at.
Now, for me, when you say use it as a substitute of eggs, somebody will be glad to hear that. But do you know that's my favorite food? I love a fried egg that's slightly over easy. I can eat that
Mhm.
day or night. That's my
Me too.
favorite thing. So don't
Yeah.
substitute it, sis.
I,
Substitute something else,
something
not
else.
fried egg. Lastly, and listening audience that's here today, I hope you're ready to give feedback to my beautiful guest today, because when I ask her this, I want you to just unmute yourself and give feedback or ask her a question. But your philosophy I love about don't eat to live. Speak to that.
I let me just say this. When I was little, I was chubby. I was chunky. So I had to learn how to eat in moderation. And a lot of people, like I said before, eating on a smaller plate. Eat to live. Don't live to eat. Don't make eating your pastime activity. Get out, go for a walk, find another hobby, find another best friend other than that food.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the only thing I can speak to is just find something else to entertain yourself other than sitting down and eating. I mean, we all, like to watch a movie. We all like to snack on something while we're watching a movie. So you can be able to, have your popcorn, what have you, but don't sit down with a meal while
Yeah.
you're eating.
Yes. No, I agree with you. And I hope that I will listen to what you're saying and make it my motto, right? Because for me, being 65, what I
Mhm.
have learned is that your joints cannot take it. I don't care
Right.
how big my appetite might be, my joints cannot take it. And
Hmm.
so when you say keep moving, watch what you eat. I like water aerobics, but I don't like any other
Perfect.
exercise. But I don't like
That's
any other
perfect.
exercise.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's perfect. If you have bad knees, bad joints, that's the best place to go is do some water aerobics.
Well,
That's
that
it.
I like that, and that's the only
Hmm.
thing I do.
That's
So
good.
these things that you have spoke to us, I truly want to be able to say that I'm doing what you're speaking of.
Good.
So I'm going to ask people now, if you would, if you have feedback for Rujel, please open your mic and give your feedback or ask a question. Anybody at this time?
Yeah, this is Barbara. I'm
Hi,
Cheryl's sister.
Barbara.
Hi. I'm the one that she says that would eat and step away and don't go back to seconds. And I don't. I really don't like leftovers. Every now and then I'll eat a leftover, but I'm not big on it. But
Hmm.
now that I'm older, um, if I fix my plate, I cannot put a lot on it because if so, it turns me off.
Right.
So when I go out, my friends, because I have a friend that's really a good cook and she has lots of stuff, and I just, put a little. First time I ate that, he said, "Are you hungry? Did you eat before you left home?" I said, "No, I was waiting on you." But because I don't know, it just takes my appetite completely away. But listening to some of the substitutes and some of the recommendations that you suggest are really some things that I've done naturally. Didn't know
Good.
why. Didn't know why, but I just did them anyway. So I really enjoyed this. Some things I learned, because I don't know if I'm going to substitute my eggs for tofu. But
I'm not either. I'm just telling you.
yeah. And the Greek yogurt, I do like it. So I'm glad to
Yeah.
know that I can substitute with that.
Hmm.
So I've really enjoyed this. And
Good.
I
I'm
will
glad,
be
Barbara.
talking to Cheryl about your book.
Good. I'm
Great job.
glad to hear that. Thank you so
So,
much.
Thank you,
great job.
Barbara. Thank you for your feedback. You know what? Let me say this about her too. I only have one sister, so she's older than me. But let me tell you, that not only has she been someone who is doing what you are speaking to the people just ever since I've been looking at her, but even when it comes to drinking, she's a one cocktail type person, and she don't do nothing else. Just that one. No, don't give me nothing else. Just that, and if they don't have it, she's not really even interested. So there's a discipline that really one needs to eating and drinking. And so you are so beautiful doing what you do. And I love that you are targeting 50 and older, that we make it in the best condition we can. So you are very much appreciated and needed in every community. And you are glowing, your skin. So that lets me know that you are in good health.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anybody?
Your skin is beautiful.
Anybody else that would like to give feedback or question?
The only other person is me.
Oh, well, good. Then let it be you.
Well, as you can tell, I am the other person that our host was referring to, her niece. I'm Barbara's daughter. So I'm the one that cooks like my grandmama.
There you go.
But getting to, for one, I enjoyed everything about the session here today. You gave insight. Now, I'm going to just be honest. I am nowhere interested. I ain't talking about being interested in healthy. I'm not. It ain't on my list to do. I am your husband. Okay? So, and speaking in terms of how and what you would do for your husband's meal, can you give some suggestions for a full day's recipe? He has to have breakfast, he has to have lunch, and he has to have dinner. Now, don't throw in any healthy kind of goobly goop.
Okay, well,
interested, no healthy goobly goop. That's
gonna be hard. I'm gonna do you this way. Okay, so here's an example. Last weekend before last, I made Sunday. Usually Sundays I make him something sweet, because I know I'm going to be cooking a big dinner, so I need something for him sweet to hold him over. I made some cinnamon rolls, but I did them a little bit too sweet. I was going off the top of my head and was experimenting with a new recipe. So I had butter and brown sugar, melted that together, put some pecans on it, and then I put the cinnamon rolls with the swirl stuff on the bottom. But I poured the brown sugar mixture with the nuts, sprinkled that over, then put the cinnamon rolls on top, and then put them in the oven. Came out, I flipped them over. It looked beautiful, but it was way too sweet. That brown sugar on top of the other, it was too sweet for him. It looked good.
Yeah.
But it was too sweet. So if you got a sweet tooth, that's what you need to do.
Say that one more time for the record.
Okay, get you. I had a half a stick of butter, and I melted that. Took it off the stove. I got some brown sugar, stirred it until it was almost like a syrup. Okay, and then get you whatever nuts. I use pecans, chopped pecans, and put those chopped pecans in my brown sugar butter mixture.
Okay.
Swirl that around. Got your round pie tin. I use a round tin to do my cinnamon rolls. Okay. Buy you some Grand's cinnamon rolls, and first pour your mixture on the bottom of your pan, and then place your cinnamon rolls on top of your brown sugar mixture. Put them in the oven, the same temperature that is called for on the package. Pull them out, and when it's cool enough to flip, just flip it over, and
wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks.
That sounds delicious.
No carbs,
that's a nice Sunday treat.
No carbs, because neither one of them have a sweet tooth. No carbs.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, that's not the recipe for you then.
It is for me, just not for them.
Okay. Yeah, that's I do that because I know I'm going to be pulling out a lot of pots and pans for my Sunday dinner. So I do that first, or I'll do an egg casserole or something that's going to quickly put in one pan and put it in the oven while I'm doing other things to prepare for the Sunday dinner.
Now I like that because when I say eggs is my favorite, the frittata, I'll make
Yeah.
that all the time because
Yeah.
not only can I eat it for breakfast, I know I can eat it for lunch, right?
Right.
I have
Right.
cut it up and saved it so I can have it later. And
Mhm.
I would do that because I like eggs, but there's nothing much of anything else that I'll prepare so I can have it later.
Uh-huh.
But the frittata I really like. You
Right.
know, when your mother spoke to your spirit and told you it was time for you to write the book, I'm glad you did. And I'm glad that it's a cookbook because, you know,
Mm.
we got authors everywhere today, right?
Right.
We got
Right.
them everywhere popping up. But the cookbooks, they are a work of art. Every time I see a cookbook, I just love the beauty of the pictures. And, you know,
Mm.
cooking is a chemistry class, right?
Mm. Mm.
So when you got room enough in your kitchen, when you enjoy cooking, how about you? Do you have music on when you're
I
cooking?
do. I do. And I
Good.
have I call my late night sessions. When I'm baking, I love to bake late at night. The kitchen's quiet. There's no
Yeah.
one fussing around me, and I just get into my groove. I have my music playing, my jazz or my Jill Scott.
Yeah.
I'm playing my music on the low, and I'm baking. I love to bake late at night because it keeps the kitchen is not as hot during the day. We're in
Yeah.
Florida, so the heat outside cools your house down. So around 10 o'clock, I'm in the kitchen cooking. I'm baking. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I'm baking because the
Oh,
house is cooler then.
yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I love that because I'm on the computer a lot and I have my music going. Very seldom do I have the TV on because I
Mhm.
just love doing that. That puts me in the zone, the music plus what I'm doing. So if you being someone that you are that cook, it's nice to know that music and you just be doing your thing, right?
Hand in hand, yeah.
Anything you like to say further before I say goodbye to you today?
I just appreciate this platform to be able to share with you. I consider you my friend.
Thank you.
You and I have so many things in common. It's not
Mhm.
even funny how we
Yeah.
just clicked like that. And I really appreciate that.
Me too.
Um, Growing up, I this is bringing a lot of memories back. When you mentioned, what sparked you to do this book, it was my mother. It took me a while. Mommy's been gone, going on 2.5 years now, and it took me a while just to say, you know what, it's time. I want to create a legacy for my grandkids. There's stories in that book. They're not just recipes. There's stories about how my mom and dad met,
Yeah.
stories about when we were overseas. So it's not just recipes. I want people to understand that. There's also things in there about, why, where do we have okra? Where did okra come from? And why is it cultural for us to
Yeah.
eat okra? Where the Brussels sprouts? Why all of a sudden Brussels sprouts is now the fad to have? When back in the day we hated them because the way they cook them now.
That's
So
right.
that's what that recipe book is all about. It's just a conglomerate of a lot of different things put together, stories, folk stories, things about your health, all that's wrapped in that one cookbook.
Well, again, I will be making sure to promote it because I appreciate you. I know it's a much needed topic out here. People need, the kitchen is the favorite room of any house, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
so when we come around the table, we really could get a lot of things done, right? We really could because if you feed a person their stomach, their soul, it all works together. So this soul food with a twist, I am buying your book as well. I went on Amazon in order to read what I can read, but I will be purchasing your book. I appreciate you so much. I thank you for being the first visual guest here on The Thinking Woman. And by the time you come again, watch, I'm have been lost a few pounds because it's no
I'm gonna say
longer
that. There you
it's
go.
no longer audio. Okay, so I gotta pay attention not to how I'm looking. So I appreciate you so very much, and I wish you the best. And I know you even got a journal on Amazon as well. Speak to that.
I have a journal. I have two journals. One journal is for little kids. It's a mermaid journal. I put that together during the COVID era because kids were inside and they couldn't play with their friends. So, a lot of kids went introvert. And so that was a way for them to be able to express themselves on that journal. There's another journal there for us Black women, for any woman of color, any woman, period, to express how you feel, your soul, what's bugging you. What do you want to get off your chest but that you can't say out loud? Once you write that down, it's done. It's over with. You don't have to come back to that. Only if you want to. Only if you want to see how you progressed. And that's what journals are for. Journals are for you to be able to write down your feelings. So you won't hurt somebody else's feelings, because we as women, we're always worried about everybody else but ourselves. Okay. Yeah. So that's where journals come into play. It's our next best friend to be able to write down how you feel. And if you do want to come back to look at it and see how you progress, then do that.
I like when you said that, for the simple fact there are some people that even say, if you having your most lousiest day, write it in a journal, tear it out the journal, read it, tear it up, and throw away those feelings. So it is a great thing to write in journals. So I knew you had offered that as well on Amazon. Before I say goodbye to YouTube, let me thank both Casey's that are here today. Again, they have been so supportive of my efforts. The Thinking Woman Mensch podcast, I came up with that idea first before what I do more actively. But now I'm going to bring my attentions back to the Thinking Woman's Mensch podcast as well, starting with the interview that I've done today. So YouTube, there you have it. When you see the name, the Thinking Woman's Mensch, what that is about is a mensch is very much like my guest today. They are impactful. They are inspiring. They have insight. They serve others. That's the kind of person that I'm interested in speaking to. And she is epitomizing what the Thinking Woman's Mensch is all about. And if you would get in touch with your thoughts, you can change your life. So she has helped me to get in touch with my thoughts regarding my physical self, that I may be the best that I can be bodily, just what's going on with me innerly. So today, Rujel Buggs, you're the best. And thank you. And I know I'll be seeing you around Facebook. If you ever come to California, you got a friend in me. And I know you're in Florida. Yes, so from one coast to the next coast, I wish you the best. And thank you, Casey's, again, for supporting me. Barbara, Monique, I love you so much. So we'll close for today, and I'll see you later.
Yes, ma'am. Peace. I love you guys. Thank you so much.